one thing that frustrates me a bit with the emphasis on genetics versus environmental, even though environmental is being looked at more, is there such thing as a human genetic code that is not affected by mercury when they're given enough? And
no, of course not. Mercury is toxic to every biological system that it's exposed to. And what I tell people, when you look at an autistic child that's been exposed to thimerosal, you're looking at someone that's really a biochemical train wreck. And you can go all the way through. We can talk about the depolymerization of tubulin, the suppression of the immune system, decreased methylation of their DNA and RNA. These kids have a myriad of problems. There isn't one biochemical system that I know of that wouldn't be effectively inhibited by mercury at very low concentrations. So when you start looking at these kids and you say, well, this problem causes it, or this, what problem don't they have? I mean, they have digestive problems, they have neurological problems, they have immune problems. Anywhere you look in an autistic child, you're going to find that the biochemistry is not normal. They don't have normal metal levels. They keep a lot of different heavy metals. They can't excrete them anymore. So there's just no explanation for this to say that mercury should be in medicine or dentistry or exposed to a human being at all. We need to get all the mercury out. And to sit there and argue, well, this little bit of mercury isn't toxic, or please let us put in. I mean, I testified in front of the Connecticut committee in the Department on Environmental Protection yesterday. And the arguments there, with people are saying, look, mercury's coming out, we have mercury, we can't eat mercury in a fish. And so what they were saying, please come here and tell us that, amalgams that we put in our mouth put mercury in our body, which we flush down the toilet sooner or later, and it gets into the sewage treatment plant, and it's going out and it's getting into the fish, and it's rendering those fish too toxic for us to eat. Is that right? That's the question they were asking. Well, what about that mercury going into your body on the first route? I mean, that's a ridiculous situation. And then it gets more stupid when you're sitting there and you're testifying, no, here's an amalgam, this is a mercury vapor sniffer, you hold it in front of it, it shows the mercury coming off. That's not a question that you have to bring somebody in from the University of Kentucky to tell somebody in Connecticut. They know that. And so there's no doubt about the contamination of the environment by dental amalgams. And yet the Connecticut Dental Association, and supported by the American Dental Association, got up after I spoke and made the argument that, in essence, if I can be sarcastic, was, but we're dentists and we really, really have the right to intoxicate people if we want to with mercury. Because the legislature didn't have the intent of excluding amalgam fillings or dressing dentistry when they said we don't want materials put in Connecticut, manufactured in Connecticut, that increase our mercury exposure. But exclude us dentists, we have a right to make you toxic. I mean, it doesn't speak very highly of the bureaucracy that runs American dentistry. As a matter of fact, I think I would say what they're doing is absolutely criminal in my mind. Because if you look who has autistic children, these people are doctors, lawyers, dentists, scientists, prime business people. The mercury doesn't have anything to do with bad genetics. When we evolved on the face of the earth, with our knuckles dragging the ground, we drank bad water and we ate bad food. So 2/3 of the metal protection that our body has against heavy metals is in our intestines. We're not supposed to breathe mercury vapors from dental amalgams. We didn't evolve breathing mercury vapor, and we didn't evolve having ethyl mercury injected into our arms and legs. And so this is not a genetic weakness. It's a susceptibility that can flow. I mean, if you're ill, if you're on antibiotics, you're going to be more susceptible to mercury toxicity. This is not bad genetics. I mean, these are very bright people. These are very capable and accomplished people.
The predispositions to mercury toxicity are other exposures combined. Is that?
That's a big part of it, but it's not a genetic mutation. It's not a genetic weakness. It is just genetics that are different. And it's like, for example, a good example are Eskimos. You give them a beer or alcohol, they can't detox that alcohol. Because they were raised in the north, they didn't drink corn or drinks made of corn or wheat or anything like that. So they didn't develop the genetics to take care of it. But I certainly wouldn't want to be compared with one of them in surviving in the North Pole. eating whale blubber and seals. So they're genetically different, but it's not a mutation, and it's not a disease of any sort. I mean, susceptibilities are just a fact of life. All of us have certain weaknesses, towards certain elements that we're eating. A person susceptible to mercury may not be nearly as susceptible to, say, some other toxin like a pesticide or something. So to say that this is the parents' fault is just angers me more than anything else. It's the fault of the people who sat there after the report came out from the Toronto hospital in '77 showing that 10 kids of 13 died after having thimerosal topically applied to their infected umbilical cord, and they reported that. And then they took thimerosal, they took mercurochrome and merthiolate, the red stuff they used to plant on. They took it off the market because it was too toxic. And then some of these Einsteins on the CDC and the vaccine board decided it was then a good idea to leave that same thimerosal and inject it into a day-old baby at a level that would only be safe if the baby weighed 275 pounds. So you have to say, if there's a mutation, if there's a problem that is a weakness, it's in the IQ of the people who run the CDC.
Ability in kids.
Well, I don't think they did. The EPA standard is 1/10 of a microgram per kilogram body weight. But that was decided on children, adolescent children, not babies, not infants less than 6 months old, but adolescents that ate fish in the Seychelles and Faroe Island studies. Now, you're eating fish, you're eating mercury that's already been in a living organism tied up with things that would render it biologically not toxic, such as selenium, or binding it with cysteine or glutathione, similar molecules in the fish. So most of it goes straight through your body and is not retained. That's the reason I say fish is not as toxic as mercury is not as toxic. And so that's how it was decided. And then you take it down through your intestines. 2/3 of the metallothionein, which binds and removes heavy metals, are located in your intestines because, like I say, we evolved eating bad food that was contaminated. And so they say, well, this level is safe. So even at 1/10 microgram, it was way too high. But then they take and they inject it, and they bypass your major protection. And they say, well, it's 1/10 of a microgram per kilogram body weight. It was just faulty logic. It just absolutely faulty.
Would oral vaccines therefore present a safer method?
Yes. Anything you take orally, I mean, you have a real protection. I mean, going from your mouth till it goes outside your body on the other end, you have a lot of protection to get rid of stuff that shouldn't be in the body. I mean, we have trouble getting drugs absorbed orally. I mean, that's how tight that system is. So it would have been, if you could do that, it would have been better. But it would have been better, you can come up with a lot of delivery systems, but nothing could have been worse than injecting it directly in the body with a bolus amount of an organic material. It is not sound science to say ethyl mercury would behave like methyl mercury. That's not sound science. It's a good first assumption, but what you do is you do safety tests. And what we can say about the CDC and the vaccine board and the Institute of Medicine totally, gave them free. They didn't do any safety testing of that vaccine, on infant mice, infant monkeys, or anything. The experimental animal was the infant American baby.